Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to part two of my tutorial for chapter 6 of the third edition of the Zelle Python book. In this part, we are going to review a program that I created called Function Cannot Change String Parameter. Okay? So one of the most important points that we covered in chapter 6 had to do with uh, when we make a call from our main code to level 2 code and we pass an actual parameter. Sometimes the level 2 code can actually change the value of the actual parameter as seen in the calling code, as seen in the main, and sometimes it can't. Okay, and the difference has to do with whether or not this value object is a mutable object, a changeable object. So the first thing we're going to demonstrate is what kind of things can't be changed in the called code. Okay, and immutable objects that we've covered so far include ints, floats, and strings. So when we're done here, you're going to have an exercise where you're going to do a different type, but I'm going to do the string. Okay, so that's why it's called function cannot change string parameter. Okay, so how does this go? I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. Okay, so let's see. I start the main. Okay, and I create a string, a value that says I am an immutable object. Well, that's pretty proud. And then we print starting value in main is, and then we print that value. So we'd expect to see I am an immutable object. So then we call the level 2 function. And I gave it a name. I called it attempt to change parameter. Well, that's optimistic, right? And then what do we pass it? Well, we pass it value in main. Okay? And then when we come back, we want to print ending value in main is, and then value in main. So if our claim is true, that because strings are immutable objects, we should print, the second time we print in main, we should still print I am an immutable object. Okay? Even though the level 2 code attempt to change parameter, it's going to do its best to change that value as seen in main. It can't do it. And why can't it do it? Because it's a string, and strings are immutable, unchangeable objects. Okay, so we're getting into the level 2 function. And what I've done is I've put a blank line print right before the output that's going to come from the subfunction and right after. So it's easier to tell, oh, I'm in the subfunction. Okay? So this is just kind of a formatting trick that makes it easy to see the outputs are coming from inside the called function and distinguish them from the ones that are coming from outside. So apart from that, it begins with starting value in function is, and it uses the formal parameter name value in function. Okay, so that's what was in the formal parameter list. And then we try to change it. So what do? Well, we assign a new string to value in function. and I guess I was a little dramatic here. I say, the great and powerful function believes that it can change all parameters, which of course we know from chapter 6 is not true. So, and then we print the ending value in the function is, and the value in function. Now the copy that we're dealing with inside of the called code is going to change. So we're going to expect it to say the great and powerful blah blah, okay? But then we're going to come to the end of the code. Now this isn't a function that returns a value, okay? And when you don't have anything at the bottom of a function that if you don't have an explicit return, okay, it's as though you said this: return none. Okay. What's a none? That's just a value that allows the calling code to see that it didn't get a value back from the function. And what does the return do? Well, it passes back this none value, and it returns control to the statement immediately after the calling statement. So do you have to explicitly code a return if you're not returning a value? No, you don't, and it's considered normal practice to not do that, even though that's the implicit default behavior. Nobody ever codes that. Okay? All right. So let's run this and see what we get. Oh, we need 2 blank lines between the end of that and the call to main. I had the gray squiggly line there. Okay. So I'm going to give this a run. And let's see what I got. So starting value in main is I am an immutable object. Starting value in function is I am an immutable object. Ending value in function is the great and powerful function believes blah blah blah. So yeah, in the context of the called function, we can change any values that are passed to us. But the question is, are those changes visible in the context of the calling code? Well, not in the case where the object that was passed is an immutable object like a string. Because when we go back to the calling code, we get ending value in main is I am an immutable object. Just, it was never changed. Okay? All right, so this is pretty clear. You're going to use another immutable type and not a string in the one that you do. I just want to point out one other thing, okay? We've coded a program in which the input is always going to be the same. I had a conversation with a student last week about a phrase that I had used, hard-coded. Okay, we say we hard-code values when we put them explicitly in the program, typically as some kind of a literal, like this. Okay, now in an ordinary program, for the program to be general and useful, well, we'd like to run it with different inputs. Okay, so hard coding the inputs is not something that's generally useful for a program to have continuing value, except if this is a demonstration program. So you can run this thing over and over again, and it demonstrates the same thing every time. Okay, I think that's just fine. Okay, but if we were trying to do something more useful and we were trying to write a program that was more general, we probably wouldn't be hard coding the input like we did right here. That's what we call a hard-coded input. Okay? But for a demonstration program like we're doing, and we're going to do another demonstration program as our next example, hard coding the inputs is just fine. Okay? Okay, well, you're off to do yours, and I'll see you again in part 3. Bye bye.